Hello, Rambler fans. Thank you for coming back for another chat with Izzy. I'm Isabel Roosevelt, and I'm joined by
Jim Szabo.
Nice to have you here. So, we're going to do some of the former teacher interview type questions. So, could you please let our audience know how long you taught in McBain?
I taught for 26 years here. I came in the fall of 1977.
All right. And then what did you teach?
Well, a lot of different classes. You were a small class D, English literature.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about this in a while, English review.
Mm-hmm.
I had 10th grade English classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an English lit minor in college, but they needed a football coach here, and I played. And so I joined Doug Troop, and a lot of your people out there would know who Doug was.
Mm-hmm.
Doug was the head coach, and then I was the assistant. And,
Okay.
that really was the beginning of a lot of very good football here.
Good. And then what brought you up to McBain?
Well, I substitute taught down in the Detroit metro area.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I took home $20 a day after taxes.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of came to the realization that I was subsidizing public education.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going into medium and heavy duty truck sales in January because I was going broke. I made good money there. And I was applying everywhere in the fall before I even started subbing. But teaching jobs were a little bit harder to find. And the next fall I started applying everywhere, and I think I had 3 contract offers in different school districts about the last week in July.
Okay.
So I actually went to an interview in the Thumb area. They wanted to hire me, and I wasn't ready for that on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, can you hold the job for me? Then I drove up to McBain, and McBain seemed a lot more normal to me.
Yes.
Kids started at 8:30. Most of them were out at 3:15 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
In this other school, I would have been starting teaching at 6 in the morning, out at noon. Yep, out at noon. It was a small school, and they were processing their seniors and juniors came early. And then they wanted me to coach football there too.
Mm-hmm.
But I accepted the job here, but it was pretty different. Jim Burchett was the superintendent, and he interviewed me in an old restaurant in downtown McBain.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in there for an hour and had a lot of questions, and he asked if there was anything else. It was dark and kind of dingy in there. And I'm like, well, I'd like to maybe see the school. And he's like, oh, you want to see the school? So, yeah. So I got a grand tour of the school, and it just seemed normal to me, and I accepted the job, and that was the fall of 77.
All right. And so, since your tour there, how has the school changed from then to now?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, we sit in this room. This used to be the photography dark room.
Oh.
They did a lot of modifications. This room used to have these chains that came down with these glass globes that were frosted white. There were about 8 of those in the room. I mean, as we sit in this room, we've got fluorescent lighting, we've got drop ceilings. There's a ceiling about 4 feet, 5 feet above this drop, and that was the old ceiling.
Oh.
We created the dark room in here. There weren't any art classes here at all. And photography was maybe the first step in that direction. Connie Morrow ended up getting art classes. They brought her in as a teacher, but I taught a lot of photography concepts, both in photojournalism and then photography as a fine art.
Okay.
And when I came here, there were a lot of kids here that were really talented in photography, not just photography, but in the area of visual arts. And those kids didn't have anywhere to go. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, if I'm going to stay here, I can start something.
Yeah.
Mr. Damhoff used to be the biology teacher down the hall, was over there. But we've created a small space in there for his storage room, and that's where the first chemical darkroom was.
Oh.
We started with 3 students.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Bazine, I think, retired not too long ago, and she got married, forgotten her name. Linda Hendricks and Juanita Culver were the first 3 photo students here.
Okay.
And they were in the 10th grade, and that took off, and from there we had art classes and photography as a fine art, and then Connie did a super job getting kids there. Mm-hmm. But that art program definitely started as a takeoff from photography. And then, but other changes, I'm just even thinking about this classroom. We put this wall up. There were enlargers over here. There were sinks over here. And that was high mileage for getting a lot of things done with kids. The whole school, though, certainly was growing. Probably one of the biggest things, there was the old gym, which is still there. They run practices in there. But at this time of year, you would have baseball, softball, track, all in the same gym.
Oh, wow.
And the girls were on one side throwing softballs, boys were on the other half throwing baseballs, and the track teams were making circles around us because they couldn't go outside. And you got to kind of hold your fire when the kids were running through.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And then my first year here, I didn't do baseball that first year. We were directing a play. I'm running rehearsals on the stage with baseball, softballs going back and forth, smashing into bleachers, kids running around, and that was for real.
Yeah.
One gym. Well, there became a need to create more space, and in time they put the new gym up. That was interesting too, because Doug Troop and myself, we got the football team going. Al Cushion, who was the biology teacher here for a long time, Al became one of the coaches. But Doug had 30-something kids on the varsity team in time, and I had 40-some kids with JVs. Doug closed off the stage down there, so that became a dressing room.
Okay.
And he hung hangers in there, and this was on the stage to do productions. We had 70 kids playing football, going into a little space to take showers. And the boys' shower room wasn't much bigger than this room that we're in right here, but it was intended for basketball originally. And then these kids are coming in off the practice fields. They're muddy, they're wet, they're dripping. I mean, you're going to play football, you're going to get wet. The stage got pretty wet, but the kids would dry off coming in, but we needed that dry space. Before that, all their uniforms, pads were going in that small space. It was a locker room, but I mean really small, and then there were showers in there. And a lot of kids would remember that, but we worked with what we had, but in time there was a need for a lot of things. And it seems like when I came here we had maybe 50, 60 kids a class, and then by the time I left in 2003, I think we were running 80 to 100 kids depending on the year.
Okay.
How many kids are in the school now?
I don't even know.
Okay.
I think there's around 80 in my class.
Yeah.
So.
But, there was a need for a lot of things. Eventually they built that the new gym. They created a new locker room. They created a weight room space because we used to have to lift weights on the stage. And it was a place to store them. And the concept of bigger, faster, stronger, well, definitely it was in by the time 78, 79, 80. Our football teams got into the playoffs. My first year here, the JVs, I think, were 1-6, 1-7. They only won one game. And then I was with Doug, and Doug saw what was going on. He asked me if I would go down and be head JV. My first year down there, we went 7-1. So we turned it around completely. Yes. And then those kids are the kids that ended up in the first playoffs eventually.
All right.
And it was interesting. Kids were nice, but they weren't ready for the physical violence. Yeah. We call it controlled violence in football. They weren't ready for that. We got them ready. It was kind of like a lot of crazy stuff, but we got the kids playing good football. And then Mr. Maloney, Pat Maloney, was my quarterback.
Okay.
And he was pretty good. He was pretty good. And, I've been around a lot of it. It was fun. But how has the school changed? Lots of construction, a lot of adding on. I don't know. To me, kids are kids. You go through different things at developmental stages. But I have a feeling that McBain kids are still great kids, and boy, we had a lot of good ones.
Well, that was a good story. Like, I'm hearing the history of some of that stuff. It's really interesting. It's cool. Since your retirement, like, what have you been up to? Hobbies, traveling?
Well, my wife comes into that story big time. Terry. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's back in 1996. And we both decided to leave teaching in 2003. I think I probably could have been teaching today and I would have enjoyed it. But I decided to pull out. I had enough time. I bought some years toward retirement. And Terry came out the same year. With her Parkinson's, she was struggling to drive, and she taught up in Manton schools. And if you're driving with her, the steering wheels, and just struggling. Well, it was time for her to pull out. And then we both pulled out that same year, and we were going strong here with photography and lots of programs. And the first thing we did, we took a trip to Maine, and I spent some time traveling and doing things with her. Not a lot of trips, but it was good time with her, with Terry. And then she passed away 7 months ago.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of people that know me, they knew Terry. And Jim's still picking up the pieces, but that's the way it is. So anyway, yeah, it was kind of interesting, and I walked away from quite a program here in photography. Terry was teaching elementary. She was kindergarten up there. They ran a developmental kindergarten program. She was super with kids. Interesting, too, this classroom and the other one, they asked me if I would teach a course in something with local folk arts.
Okay.
And in this classroom, I had 29 middle school kids making fish decoys. And fish decoys are something you make out of wood, and they're pretty technical. A lot of people don't know this, a few do. But Cadillac, Michigan had Oscar Peterson, who was really a well-known decoy carver. He's highly collected right now, and was when I was teaching it. And I brought the decoy world to the kids in a class, and we went through talking about the history of the fish decoy locally. A lot of your farmers, they got their protein from milk, from a cow, whatever, but they also did a lot of fishing here. And then spearing was really very popular in Lake Cadillac and Mitchell and other area lakes. And so a lot of guys had Oscar Peterson fish decoys, but they could also make their own. So this class was making our own decoys. I gave them the history. Kids had to come up with picture morgues so that they knew the difference between a trout, a perch, a crappie, a largemouth bass, smallmouth bass. They could make decoys after all those, but they needed to have references. So that was going on. I taught them a lot about the materials used, white cedar versus popple. It's a wood that really survives well. And eventually, the kids actually made these decoys. We went down and used Mr. Koopman, who was still doing, or was doing, wood shop and still is. But we did the initial shapes on bandsaws, and then I showed the kids how to use single-edge razor blades, but not in the class. And I taught them how to do it, and then I said, go home and teach your mom and dad how to do this correctly. Nobody lost any fingers, nobody cut themselves. And then eventually those got shaped, formed. There was a lot of sanding going on in the classroom here. 29 kids. I don't know if you can imagine that in the space. And then we had a superintendent that walked in, and we've had great superintendents, and we've had some not so good. The kids were right on task, but you don't put the lid on 29 junior high kids.
Yeah.
And the superintendent came up in the hallway, and he wanted to know what was going on. And I said, well, the kids are making fish decoys. They said, they're what? They're making fish decoys. He had no idea what it was.
Oh.
And he was kind of getting beat red in the face, and the kids are having fun with this too. But anyway, and the kids were all on task. He sort of headed out the door, got just red hot. And his last words were, those fish decoys will never be worth anything. And he stormed off. And I was like, okay, bye. Now, I tell you that story because I bought a decoy, and I actually just got back from a decoy show in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Terry and I, when we went on that trip, I sold one fish decoy, and I don't mind telling people this. It was a rare decoy, $15,000. And this was a superintendent telling me things aren't worth a whole lot.
Yeah.
You run into different people. He never taught a day in his life. That was kind of different too. But the kids enjoyed it. And then at the end of that, 27 kids finished their decoys. 2 finished them a couple days later. And we put about a dozen of those in an industrial arts contest. I think it was up near Indian River. Inland Lake Schools, I think, may still do that. And we came back with about 8 ribbons. And the
That's
kids placed well.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the kids made some amazing decoys. And then I made sure we got all those kids in pictures with their decoys and their ribbons. And I don't know what the superintendent thought about that. I didn't care. But the parents loved it, and the kids loved the process. And that was also certainly bringing in art and design, because all that had to be painted. And there's quite a process there. But that was fun. But yeah, Terry and I went to Maine off of selling one decoy. And I just got back from Cleveland, Ohio, where that was the first time I've really been away since Terry passed away. And I did real well at that decoy show. But I moved into duck decoys, fish decoys, construction of them. There's just tons of history about all that. It's very much part of the art world too, but it's part of the natural art world. And it's fun stuff to do. But yeah, Terry and I took trips, and the last 3, 4, 5 years, I really didn't go too far. It was all about caring for Terry. And I miss her.
Well, thank you for that. That was, my last question for you is, I told you that I'm planning on going into education. Do you have any advice for me?
Well, number one, you got to like kids, and you'll be around kids because you'll be doing pre-student teaching, student teachings. I think what I would say, and I would say this to a lot of kids that are in school, not every class you're going to take is something you're necessarily going to use. But a lot of going to higher education, they give you a broad view of lots of things, especially just with your bachelor's degree. I guess I would say figure out what you want to do, what classes you want to teach. Be aware of the fact that all those classes you take may not make a difference. But our whole society is set up in such a way that a lot of times you have to jump through hoops to get to the next level. So you have to have a kind of stamina and endurance to get past some of those junk classes. I used to teach English literature here, and it really is a higher level of thinking, but kids used to have to write papers on subjects like English is derived from the Western division of the Germanic branch of the Indo-European family of languages. Now write a paper about that. It's teaching kids how to think, and you're going to go through that process. It's not necessarily about what to think, but yeah, you teach kids how to think, and you're going to be involved in that. Half the stuff you're going to have is valuable. The other half, you're just going to have to get through. I had a breakfast at a restaurant this morning, and there's a gal that just took a statistics class, and she had a test today. And she's headed into a part of medicine related to the heart. I'm thinking to myself, boy, how is statistics going to help her out? And she's not bombing out in the class, but she's like really struggling with it. Well, it's one of those courses she's got to take, somebody decided, and she's got to jump through those hoops. So what I would say is you build a toughness, a thicker skin. You're going to get some of those classes. And you're going to say, why do I got to do this? Well, you learn that you've got to jump through hoops. Everybody in teaching has to stay in school right now. You have to get credits. It's part of jumping through the hoop. Mr. Buckley was one of the band directors here, and we both had to take, the state required this teaching of reading. He's teaching band. He was upset that he had to take that class. We had to go up to Grayling for the class, 15, 16 weeks. So we had all these sessions going up there. And he kept grumbling, why do I got to take this class? jumping through those hoops. It's something that you just sort of had to do. And that was Mr. Buckley, good guy, good band director. I know we've had great band directors here too. But yeah, you're going to be required to do things that you might not want to even after you get the degree. I would say stay in touch with kids, stay open to different things. There's not a right answer to everything, but there definitely are routes to do. And I think the other thing I tell you is stay out of debt.
Okay.
I know there's lots of scholarships here, many more than most school districts have.
Yep.
Apply.
Okay.
Get money.
Absolutely.
If you have to go into debt, you do, but stay away from debt.
Okay.
And there's people at the university college who'll say, oh, we've got all kinds of money, we'll give you money, but you have to pay it back. You don't want to come out of school in debt.
No.
Well, say no, but that's also part of the tough skin. They're like, they're ready to write you the checks and have you go into debt.
Yeah.
No way, Jose. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in and chatting with me. This has been another Chat with Izzy. Thanks for tuning in.